This is John Cressman with monkeyuncle.com. This is our vertical shooter tutorial. This is episode 4, and if you've been following along, you should have your project at this state. But if not, you can download the project from www.monkeyuncle.com. Today we're going to be adding some enemies to our vertical shooter. So the first thing you do if you have your project open is do a file, save as, and we're going to do this as vertical shooter 004. Alright, so we wanted to add enemies, so the first thing we're going to do, of course, is add an actor, and we're going to call it enemy 1. I'm going to go ahead and open up that enemy. We're going to open up our space shooter graphics from Kenny, and we're going to go here to our enemies section, and we're going to choose enemy black 1. We're just going to copy that over. We're going to change the size to match, and that size is 93 wide by 84 tall. And there we have our actor. And remember, we're going to save often just in case. Alright, and now what we're going to do is we're going to create two attributes here. An integer. We're going to call this health. And we're also going to create another integer called speed. Again, I like to put the speed as an attribute because then it's easy to edit later. So we're going to set this at 100. And that's going to be the speed it travels down the screen at. And now to do that, we're going to add a couple of behaviors. The first one is going to be to set the enemy motion linear velocity y. We're going to have this traveling down the screen, so that means the coordinates will be getting smaller. So we're going to set that to negative enemy 1 speed, that attribute we just created. And that's going to have it move down the screen. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save. I'm going to hit home. Now previewing it won't do anything because there's no enemy on the screen. So we're just going to put this enemy, we're going to actually put it above the screen. Okay, and it's going to come down. I'm going to go ahead and preview that. So we're going to start game, and here it comes. And it's coming, and it's coming, and it goes right past this and off the screen. Now, much like the lasers from the last episode, this enemy will keep going off the screen and just keep going and live forever until you tell it to die. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a check, and we're going to check the enemy position y, which is its vertical position, and we're going to say if it's less than, now 0 is the bottom of the screen, but that's only the halfway point, so we're going to say if it's equal to negative enemy size height, and yes, you can have negative positions. So if it's equal to negative position means it's fully off the screen, then we're going to destroy, just like we did the actor. Okay, so let's file and save that. And now we're going to test it, and down it comes. And of course, you can't see it destroy itself, but it does. Now, right now, it doesn't really do anything. It could pass right through. In fact, we're going to come back here and start game. I can fire, and the lasers don't do anything to it. So to do that, we need to test for collisions. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add some collision in the enemy. So to do that, we're going to create, or we're going to say the actor receives event, and we're going to change this to overlap or collides with an actor of type player laser. So that means that this enemy has run into a laser, or the lasers run into the enemy. Either way, when that happens, we should destroy the enemy. Now also, we're going to duplicate this rule. We'll just put collides with laser. We're going to duplicate this rule with the Alt or Option and drag. We're going to say collides with player. And we're just going to change this player laser to player. All right, so I'm going to hit File, Save. We're going to preview it. And now if I fire, it disappears. But notice that the lasers that hit it did not disappear. So let's go into laser, and they normally should. So I'm going to create a rule, same thing, when it overlaps or collides with. Now we could just do this enemy 1, but there's another way we can do it. We're going to come back to home. We're going to create a tag, okay, and we're going to call this enemies. All right. We're going to go back to all, and we're going to drag enemy 1 into the enemies tag. All right. That means we can set the rule up so that it will react to any enemy, not just the one that we're doing. So let's go back into laser. We're going to change it with actor with tag enemies. So whenever it runs into any enemy, this laser should destroy itself. All right. So now let's go. Let's test it. We're going to fire. Oh, and then you see one of them hit it and disappeared. And now, of course, we're going to come here to the player, and since we now have an enemy that can collide with it, let's create a rule and say when this overlaps with, and let's change this to tag enemies. Now we could destroy it, but that's not what we really want to do for now. We want to go to that end screen because at this point their ship is gone. We need to tell them that game is over. So we're going to go to the end scene. Now of course the end scene is blank right now, so let's go ahead and create a message for them. We're going to call this end message. Go into end message. Doesn't matter what color it is, because what we're going to do is we're going to set, first thing we're going to do is we're going to set this attribute. We're going to set the color alpha to 0. Again, that's so we can see where it's at on the screen, but as soon as it runs, the first thing it does is set it to invisible, but it doesn't set the display text to invisible. So now we're going to come in here and we're going to change this to game. Now remember, you have to use the Option or Alt space over. All right. And we can probably change this to 48. And I'm going to change that color to yellow. So it's going to put the message game over in the middle of this actor. Now we just have to come over to the scene, end, and we can move this message, end message, put it on the screen, and we're just going to cover the whole screen. And they're going to see this message. The only other nice thing we could do, again I'm going to edit the prototype, is create rule when you receive a touch and the touch is inside. We want to give them a way to get back to the menu. So let's just do a change scene to menu when they touch it. Alright. File, save. I'm going to go ahead and start the game. I'm not going to fire this time. I'm going to let it crash into me, and boom, game over. And there we have the end of lesson 4. We've created our enemy. We have a couple behaviors. Now we can shoot the enemy. So we will be doing a spawning of enemies in episode 5. So make sure you catch episode 5. Again, this is John Cressa with monkeyuncle.com.